Okay, I'll have to restate everything I just said, which is fine. Waiting for the YouTube video to catch up to see if this should fix. I didn't realize the audio was off, so I'm just waiting for proof that audio is working. Okay, I'll have to restate everything I just said, which is fine. Okay, so going back now, restating what I said. First thing, website's live. That was last week's stream goal, so glad that DaveBrudnerMorningshow.com is up and running. Hey, we deployed it with Netlify. I recorded and live streamed a little bit of that and wish I had the whole thing, but I don't. So it is what it is. Netlify is a great service though, and I would love to go back and do a video on it. Excuse me. Other than that, the other thing I kept mentioning, or I was mentioning, is that last week, every show that I had, I woke up, or I started the stream and talked about how tired I was or how off I was feeling, and that by next week, i.e. this week, I would be fine. But that's not the case. I'm still feeling quite off. I didn't sleep well at all last night, and I would tell myself that by next week we'll be good, but I'm not going to rush myself anymore. We'll get better when we get better. In the meantime, the stream's been fucking awesome to work on. I'm really glad that I'm still following through with the commitment on it. Nice to see a little bit of development with it, with the website going up and things. Still trying to figure out my brand, but I have some ideas for that. Just need to sit down and theme out some shit. Make the website pretty. That'll probably happen pretty soon too, or start making it prettier at least. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna keep doing these scheduled things Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 9 Central Time. And I think that the other thing I've been thinking is that some of the topics are really dope, but because my brain is a little not 100% right now, I'm not hitting some of the points I want to hit for some of the topics. So I think I might either go back and do a follow-up stream for some of them, or I might record a shorter video of my thoughts on that thing that'll just be pared down just to the a few fine points rather than this sort of discussion-y, rambly type situation that we have. We'll do both though, because I really love this and the things that have come out of it. I have gotten a few very, very nice messages from people, which is really fucking encouraging too, and really appreciate anyone who's offered any encouragement or support. That's awesome. Regardless, I even if I didn't get any support, I'm just gonna keep doing it and see what happens, and hopefully we'll get some people asking questions in chat eventually. Probably amp up the outreach, marketing-y kind of stuff, and put the channel out to some different websites and shit once I'm feeling more comfortable with everything. And the timeline for that, again, I think a lot of it's just based on when I'm starting to feel better in general, because things have been really tough for me the last month or so. Regardless of all that, today we're going to be talking about the question that I get asked the most from people who are considering starting learning how to code, which is, should I take a boot camp? Really, really, this is probably the question I get asked the most. It's where do you start? Should I take a boot camp? I have a lot of thoughts on it. A lot of thoughts on the world of coding boot camps, and I'll talk about my own experience first. I did take a coding boot camp. When people ask me about it, I tend to downplay it. I took a coding boot camp through a company called Trinity, which does them all over America, all over the country, and they usually do them through universities. So mine was through Rutgers University, but they also do a lot of I think University of Washington has them. I mean, they're all over the place. They're definitely an adult continuing or learning education type program. Average price for these things is about 10 to 15K for full time in person one. Mine was 10K, I think. They might go a little lower. Mine might have been 12, and you can get loans through whatever the fucking Sally Mae type thing. You can get loans to do them too. The premise is basically for coding bootcamp, if you don't know, they're usually 3-month or 6-month program of a full-time or part-time situation where you go from the ad is like the tagline will be like, go from never writing a line of code to getting a career making X amount of dollars in the software industry in like 3 months. And there's a bunch. It's also important to know that, and this is like a big thing. All boot camps are wildly different. It's basically private. It's like private education, private businesses doing this thing. So they're all going to be totally unique, and they're probably going to vary quite a bit in quality, I would think. For my boot camp, I was in Korea, and I decided I wanted to learn how to code, and I was coming back home, and the reason I signed up for one was firstly so my parents would chill the fuck out, because if I told them that I was just sitting at home writing code all day and trying to do this thing, I think that they would be really fucking annoying about it. Oh shit, I hope they're not watching. We might have to go back and edit this. I think they would have just been very concerned, and that was part of the reason why I did it. The other reason is to get, and this is something that if you're considering taking one, this would be a really good reason to take a boot camp, I think. The other thing is a boot camp will give you something to aim for. It'll put you in a community of people, everyone with the same goal in mind, with the same direction, and that can be really, really powerful. If you're just sitting at home alone coding and missing out on that community, I think you're limiting yourself. But you don't have to find it just through coding bootcamp. There's tons of ways that you can find mentors and communities of people who are like coding and learning how to code. You can find that online or in person in like tech meetups. Probably not now in COVID, but like usually. But having like people who are on the same path as you is really, really fucking helpful, and having like an instructor or having somebody who's like walk the walk is super fucking helpful too. For me, the good things about the coding boot camp, when I look back on it, and I reflect on it pretty negatively, but I'm starting with the positive stuff. The good things about the coding boot camp gave me were, one, a community, which gave me confidence. So having like a group of people who were all doing this thing and seeing how much, no offense to these people, but how much better I was at it than they were, or how much harder I was working, was really, really reassuring. I felt like I was by a large margin the best student in the class and worked the hardest, and it gave me a ton of confidence. So that was the first thing. The second thing is having a curriculum is really helpful. Yeah, you'll find like a very holistic curriculum of like we covered so much shit, and that was really useful. It's hard, you can't really find, there's like Udemy courses that are sort of like all in one type things that like this dude named Colt Steele, maybe Colt something, I don't know, he does them, and you could find programs and classes and things that are like that, and that's fine but they're pretty uncommon to find like a full-on like start to finish thing. So they're like having a curriculum, even though this boot camp's curriculum was arguably not the best, was really, really helpful. I learned, I think the other thing is having a boot camp, I was able to learn things I probably would not have learned otherwise. Even, like, I was a voracious learner when I first started, but we did a lot of back-end stuff in the boot camp, and I think that I probably would not have dabbled as much in that. I don't know how that would have gone on my own. So having that was like really helpful, getting pushed in to learn, like learning about databases was something that for whatever reason did not appeal to me at all, but forcing myself to do it was really helpful. So that was good. But yeah, the community aspect, and then it gave me a lot of confidence, and having a curriculum. Those are like the good things about it, I would say. I'll give you all the negative things, because there are a shitload. Firstly, the $10,000 is an assload of money for stuff that you can more or less learn on your own for free. It's a lot. It's a pretty good chunk of change. So firstly, they are pretty expensive. Secondly, and this is huge, I think, my boot camp started with about 30 people, and I think about half of that finished the program. Like 18 might have finished the program. So 12 people spent $10,000 and then dropped out of the program before, a lot of them in like the first month or by the second month were done. Even a lot of the people who finished, they may have finished the boot camp, but they are not ready to work in the world of development. They're for whatever reason, coding didn't click with them, or they didn't put in the work, and they finished the 3 months and they are nowhere. I would say there were a good chunk of people like that. I would say of the 30 people, I think like 18 finished, maybe less, and then I only know of like, including myself and excluding people who already had programming jobs before, I would say probably 4 or 5 people got jobs in the industry. So out of 30 people, I would say 3 or 4 already had jobs, and they got, different jobs after the boot camp. I kind of exclude them because I think that they probably would have gotten jobs regardless. But then of that, so it's like 25 people left. Only 5 got jobs, so 20%. And I follow a lot of these people on LinkedIn, and I know that now they're like, not doing it. Some of them took a second boot camp. There was a dude who I know took another boot camp somewhere else and took like a long path to get there, but he did get there. But yeah, I would say a lot of, that part was disappointing. I was really frustrated in my boot camp with the other students and with the instructor, because I felt like he was reducing the standard of his class to meet like the lowest common denominator, and that was really frustrating for me because I was working so hard, paying the same amount of money, and getting kind of ignored because I was able to handle the shit on my own, but I wanted to be pushed, and that wasn't present in my boot camp. There were too many people who were struggling, so the instructor just had to deal with that. So just I think it could have been the boot camp that I took too, where like some of them are really geared towards young. I think like, what's the really big one? There's one that's like really, really tough to get into and kind of special and shit. I can't remember the fuck the name of it is. It's in like New York City. I think there's a bunch of them though, but there's definitely some of them might screen better. Like this one didn't. The boot camp I took, they had like an interview to get in, but it was pretty silly. And I think at the end of it, I realized that this is very much so a for-profit type situation. The school itself is just interested in making money. They don't really give a fuck if people get jobs or not, only in as much as it like they can put down a brochure or put down their like ad material. But I did feel like the students in general were kind of just not motivated, and just like that was really, really frustrating for me. I remember we did like 3 group projects. My first group project, I felt like I did everything. My second group project, I felt like I did almost everything, and the other 2 people I worked with just didn't do shit. Like, were very frustrating to work with. So for the last project, I was the only one. I think there was actually one other person. I shouldn't say I was the only one, but I was like basically the only person who did their own project. Everybody else worked in groups, and my project was like the best. It was like the most filled out in the class. Like I by myself worked more hours on my project than like this team of 5 people did on their whole thing, like total person hours. I remember that. Like I was just frustrated with the other students, but it did give, by the end of it, I was like, yo, if anybody's gonna get a job from this shit, it's gonna be me, because these people are fools. Jeez, I shouldn't be this blunt. But yeah, so I remember before starting my boot camp, I went online on YouTube and I asked like how to get ready for boot camp, and everyone talks about how hard they are. Coding boot camp, so hard. You're competing with people who have been coding forever and who are looking to like transfer from one part of the stack to another or whatever. You can never be too ready and all this shit. I was very scared on my first day. Like leading up to my boot camp, I had about 30 days to prep, and I took that very seriously. Every day for like 8 to 12 hours a day, I would just like go through free code camp, because I was so nervous that when my coding boot camp started, everyone was going to be so much farther ahead of me. By the second day or third day, I realized that was not the case at all. I was ahead of almost all the students in the class already, and that just continued. By the end of it, it was kind of fucking ridiculous. So I look back at my coding bootcamp time as kind of a waste of money, but then I also think like it did ultimately get me to where I wanted to be, and I don't know if that result would have worked out differently if I didn't take the boot camp. So I'm kind of like, I don't think it was worth it, but it's really hard to know what would have happened alternatively. So who the fuck knows? I'm of the opinion that the people who got jobs in that class, myself included, would have gotten a job without the coding boot camp if they had just done this stuff on their own. I think that's kind of what I feel. Could be wrong, you know. But yeah, that was my experience. It wasn't really a positive one. I would say that the like idea, and you'll see it all over YouTube, of like going from 0 to 3 months or 4 months, from like never having written a line of code before to in 3 months or 4 months getting a job. That is a exceptional result, and really fucking and pretty rare. I think that, like, I know how hard I had to work to get it in 5 months, and if I almost don't see where you could maximize, like, where are you going to squeeze out enough that you could finish it in like a month earlier. I don't see it, but it could be wrong. And now looking back, based on like the interview questions I was asked in my first interview, I probably could have gotten it in 3 or 4 months, maybe, if I really pushed. But that is a crazy exceptional result, and I think that, like, if you're going to take a boot camp and feel like when it's done you're guaranteed a job, you're gonna be sorely disappointed, because it just doesn't work like that. Companies do not give a fuck if you have a coding bootcamp certificate that weighs 0. They do not care at all about that. It gives you no leg up on anything anywhere, I don't think. Hack Reactor, that's the name of the really nice, the good bootcamp company. They're really expensive and supposedly like hard to get into and shit, and they do like really good placement stuff. Career services and boot camps. This is, I think that if you're going to do a boot camp with the intent of getting a job, that's what you want to be most concerned with, because that's where they can actually help you. My coding boot camp had some, like, the worst career services. Like, it was worse than my high school guidance counselor, and I'm not even kidding. Like, it was abysmal. The lady who ran that part of like the course was late for everything. Spouted some crazy self-motivating bullshit every time you saw her, from like a Dale Carnegie book that was really weird and corny. She always said weird shit, like it kind of rhymed and was like, I don't know, just weird shit. But like they didn't help me. I don't know if they help place anybody at all anywhere, but there are boot camps that will be like, will take a percentage of your first year salary instead of tuition, or they'll be like, just have career services that are like actively placing people. And if you're gonna do a boot camp, that's what you really want to, like, that's what you want to be there for. That's like the stuff that you can't really get on your own. The curriculum and learning how to code, you could do that on your own. There's no reason you can't. It is nice to have like a set schedule for that, but it's, you know, it's an extra convenience. You don't need it. You can learn how to code without a boot camp, but the career services is nice. The community is really nice. So yeah, I would just be very wary of doing one, and then definitely have realistic expectations too. Like, if coding doesn't come super easily to you, you don't absolutely love it, it's going to be really, really hard to get a job in 3 months. Having said that, though, there's no reason why you need to get a job, unless there is, but like, there's no reason to rush yourself, and there's no reason to compare yourself to other people when you're starting out. I do know, I kind of mentioned this before, there was one student in the class who he was a smart guy for sure, and like, he wasn't the worst coder in the class, but he was definitely not the best either. He was just so motivated, though. He was the only other person besides me who seemed motivated, and he finished that boot camp. I don't think he was able to get a job at first, so he took a second, and then he got a job, and like it took him like a year or something, and that is some gritty shit. That's like somebody who really wants it, and that's the kind of person you need to be. There are a lot more entry level and junior level jobs out there than people think. You don't have to be like code god to get those jobs, but you do have to exhibit certain like characteristics and shit, and it has to be clear that you do know somewhat what you're doing and you can like learn and get better. I think that a lot of people think that there's just like there's no front end, or excuse me, there's no junior roles, there's no entry level roles, everything demands experience. It's really not true. My first company was desperate for people. They would have hired people who could just reverse a string, and it was a good company, and they would have like paid pretty good money, but they just couldn't find people who could do it. Part of that is probably their shitty recruiters, but I think people just need to get in the door. Like, you gotta really want it, you gotta really fucking want this shit. It's you can't just take a coding boot camp, get a piece of paper, and then someone's gonna find a job for you. You gotta be like, you have to want it. You have to really want it. At least I think so. I mean, I just think there are, to be fair, there's a limited number of these roles. They're not like there's not billions of them. There's more candidates than there are roles, so you do have to be exceptional. But I don't think it's that hard to be exceptional. I've interviewed people and I've seen resumes. It's not like, the competition is not quite what you think it is, probably. Even now, like, you might be starting out and thinking that you're going to be competing with, because the market's like tighter, you might be competing with people who have years of experience for an entry level role. Firstly, there's no reason why you can't beat them out, and secondly, I don't think that's necessarily true either. So I would say if you're sitting down and thinking about whether you want to take a coding boot camp, firstly consider, like, research the boot camps in your area or the ones you're considering taking. Do your research. You could probably even find people who took the boot camp and talk to them, honestly. I would say that's the first step. The second step is, like, think about the money and if it's worth it. So my boot camp was at Rutgers, which is in like South New Jersey, and I just came home from Korea, and I was at my parents' house, which was about an hour away in North Jersey. So just to get time back so that I could focus on coding, I subletted a room, tiny room, in Rutgers, so I could live there while doing the boot camp. And like the other students weren't doing that. They were commuting 45 minutes each way every day, and I'm like, if you're gonna do a boot camp, be all the fuck in on it, though. Even if you like have realistic expectations, know that it's not a guarantee for a job, but take that time, because if you're an adult, you might not have another chance to like not work and like to transition into something. You're taking like a 3-month period to retrain yourself. Go at it. You gotta be so aggressive. Like, you gotta maximize every minute that you can. Got to go like full monk mode, and like, no drinking, no anything fun, or at least no like, partying type of fun. Coding is fun though, but like you really just got to fucking like really do a full immersion to get in there. Fall asleep watching tutorials, wake up doing what the fuck algorithms and shit, and just track your progress and all that stuff. You can't half-ass it, in my opinion. It's maybe like my caveat is always that, like, I'm talking about the way that I did it. There's a great many, there's a million ways to do this, but for me to get a job quickly, I had to like go full immersion. Let me bring my mic over a little closer to me here. I had to go like full immersion, and just like everything I did was about code or about getting a job. That was it. Like, nothing else even was in my mind. I do realize and again, like I was another counterpoint to this. I was in a pretty fortunate position. I mean, I spent all my money on this stuff and went into debt. Like, I'm not like a super rich person, but I did have parents who were able to support me a little bit during that time, and I just had I don't have kids, and I'm lucky enough that I don't. There's no I have no responsibility or commitments or anything like that, so I had the opportunity to just sit down for 3 months and learn how to code. I know a lot of people don't have that, and if you're somebody who has kids or has to work through this and is doing this part-time, man, I feel for you, because that's going to be really, really hard. Everything's doable. You just have to be really, really consistent and really push through. But if you're a younger person and you have the ability to I think if you have the ability to take the time off to do this, and also if you have the ability to move anywhere, depending on where you get a job, that it's so doable. This stuff is so fucking doable for anybody. You might not. I mean, the other thing with coding bootcamp, I would say, firstly, I mentioned this in other videos, is before you sign up, before you drop your $10,000 to $15,000, $20,000 on your bootcamp, make sure that you like coding. Take time to take a month or 2 months and just teach yourself on the side to see if you're able to if you're into it or not. If you're not into it, don't take a boot camp, because it's gonna be bad. I'm saying it was pretty easy for me, and I keep saying that, but it is an assload of work. You're gonna be writing code all day every day. When you go home, you'll be writing code all day every day. So make sure that you're at least get to a point where you're maybe I can see this. Maybe I could do this for 8 hours a day, and then take it. But don't just don't sign up for a coding boot camp, do nothing leading up to the boot camp, and then just go in. Don't do that. Even if they gave us homework for the first class, little things to do. Teach yourself HTML, build very tiny, simple things. There's 3 hours of work before the class. Do more than that. Whatever boot camp you take is probably going to have an initial pre-course work thing. Go beyond that. Set your own goals to some extent. You really need to you need to exceed the other. To some extent, you're competing with the other students. You need to take things seriously and grind this shit out. Yeah, just make sure you like it first. That would be my the biggest piece of advice. Make sure you like coding before you sign up for a boot camp. But then also don't have any. So after you sign up for it, don't have any fantasies about. Don't be if I just get through this course, I'll be good, and then grind through the course but not do anything else on this. Just grind out the course and then chill on the side. You're gonna be no one's gonna give you a job, basically. No one is just gonna give you a job. You have to prove yourself. I would. It's tough. Everyone's different. So I'm thinking now, if somebody came and asked me about if they should take a coding bootcamp, what would I say? And I would say to consider so many things. But it's definitely a good option for a lot of people. I do know, I do have other friends who took coding boot camps and have gotten jobs out of them. Not just myself, but I know other people who have different boot camps, people I met in Korea who went back and took coding boot camps, and now they're developers. And I think maybe my boot camp just maybe wasn't that good and had shittier students, but from talking to her, it seemed that a lot more of their students did get jobs. So, I think maybe they can be really good too. It's also something else, and it's kind of for another video, is that if you want to get into tech, there's so many other things you could do aside from writing code that pay really fucking well and engage in different, types of people. Project management stuff is huge, Scrum and Agile and process management stuff, and they make an assload of money, which blows my mind. That's conversation for another day, but these people make so much fucking money. God, I don't even get it. I almost did a video on Agile and Scrum today, and then was just gonna rag on it, but really, Scrum masters and these people make program manager, these people make a lot of money. Arguably, what they do can be can make or break an organization. and can like really, really supposedly can really enhance a team and increase productivity. I haven't really seen it though. I'm going to talk about this a different day, but like I have not really seen, and I've met some pretty damn good Scrum people that I've worked with, but I'm either missing something or I've just not worked long enough to see stuff come to fruition. But original point, there's a ton of different things you can do in tech that aren't necessarily coding. Project management is one, and I don't think it's that. I think getting into it probably isn't that hard. It must be. Oh, some of the smartest people I know are Scrum masters and Agile people. But I think that for some people, especially if you're not someone who's like a super great developer, just super great at code, that's really it's a really interesting field, I think, and it pays a lot of money. QA is something that also deceivingly pays a lot of money. There's like senior QAs are getting paid more than regular developers, no question. Senior QAs get paid a lot. QAs get paid a pretty good chunk of money. There's some technical skills involved for that, but it's also a good way to get your foot in the door. And yeah, you just get I don't know. And I think there's like QA-ish bootcampy type or like how to be QA courses and stuff. And if you do like the coding element, you could do QA also. You can be manual tester, but there's the real money is in like automated testing and writing code to like test infrastructure type stuff or just writing tests in general. Those people do make a lot of money. And then there's like support people who typically make less money, typically less technically inclined. Depends on the company though, because some companies have phenomenal engineers in support because they're like a SaaS company and that's like a huge part of their software licensing agreements or whatever. Their value prop is in support. So it's not necessarily if you're support, you're not a good engineer, but it's another place where you can start. And you can like from all of this stuff, if you get your foot in the door, you can depending on the company, but really not. You can transition out pretty easily after you spend some time and whatever and learn the org. My last company had a number of success stories about that, about people who started in like support and became engineering managers and like security people, IT security people, and all this different stuff, and they started support. And then product people, which is if you're the Steve Jobsy type thing where you're like you're in charge of basically making like deciding what you're trying to make or like has the domain knowledge in that thing. For example, my company is an insurance company, work on a team, and there's a product owner on the team who knows how insurance works, and she's the one who's like making the requirements for the tickets because she understands like what we're actually trying to do. Whereas like as a developer, you're just taking a set of requirements and implementing them. You're not like thinking about the actual implications of anything. You're just building a thing. So I think that's another way to go. I have a friend now who took a boot camp and now he's a product owner with like cryptocurrency company. And generally these people just have intense domain knowledge of whatever it is that your company does. So like my last company was a payments company, so all the product people just intensely knew how credit card transactions and bank account how those things like work over the wire. So I think that and you could start off taking a coding boot camp and then transition over like QA or like any of those things. You don't necessarily have to be a developer, but I do think that there's like such a lucrative opportunity in tech, not just in coding, but in all these other things that if you're looking for a job, maybe don't just limit yourself to being a coder, developer, engineer. You could do any of these other things. And all of those positions make a lot of money as well. Like that program management stuff, product people make a lot of money. Support QA, usually a little bit less, but I've seen their salaries. They make good money too. Boy, we tired today, man. Got a ton of work to do. I was thinking about cutting this one early before I started. We might do that. But we'll see. I have a ton of stuff for work I really need to do. But we'll finish the conversation out, I think, or go another 15 minutes and see. But that's like a great deal of my very nebulous thoughts on boot camp. I definitely have more. I have like other stories about my boot camp too. It was definitely frustrating to see the students just not as motivated as me. That was my biggest takeaway. And we had a couple of TAs in the class, which is really common for boot camps to have like past students be TAs, and they had a couple. And I remember being a little concerned because the TAs had been TAs for like over a year and hadn't gotten jobs. So they took their boot camp like over a year ago, all three of them, and like none of them had gotten jobs yet. And I remember being in the class being like, well, if they're not getting jobs, then how the fuck like are these other people, or how am I going to get a job? But I honestly I was such a stinker. I really had a belief that I was even better than the TAs who had been like coding for a year, and I wasn't. Like looking back now, they were really smart people, and all three of them did get jobs pretty quickly after that. All of them are engineers now. But yeah, I do remember feeling like I was like better. I was pretty arrogant, or really confident at least. And I feel like I don't know if I've lost that confidence, but I do feel like I've lost my edge at some point. At least, like, maybe that'd be a good topic for video. I've kind of been this way for a while, where I had this goal, like this 3-year goal of get a job as a developer, making 6 figures, a remote job, and then move back abroad. That was my 3-year goal. I was 2 years in. I was 2.5 years in. We were kind of close. My current job was at that time was $90,000 a year, with also a lot of dope ass other compensation benefits, and was a job that I could work from home. So it was like a notch. I was like almost there, but not quite. And then with the job I got now, we exceeded the 6 figures by a good margin, and it is a fully remote role. So I feel like I accomplished it pretty much almost exactly 3 years time. Now that I think about it, it was maybe like a month, 3 years, 1 month. But after completing that goal, now I'm kind of like, okay, what's the next thing? And I had some ideas in mind. I think it's going to probably be leaning towards management. But like I had the strong motivation I had when I started out to learn this stuff is not there anymore, which is really sad. I still do stuff sometimes, but it's not this like. Even my first job, I had a burning desire of like, I need to get better at this stuff, and would go home and code all the time, every day. Get home from my job and write more code and stream and work on the weekends and do like all the time. And when I started at Recurly, I still kind of did it, not nearly as much though. I definitely did a couple things, but it definitely slowed down. And then by the end of it, now it's like, I guess I still dabble a little bit, but the flame is not even close to what it was. And I think it's because I've accomplished the goal I set out to do. And now it's kind of like, you got to be working, like, can't just do stuff to do stuff. I need to be working towards a larger vision, which I think is going to be management. So we'll start figuring it out. Basically need to like figure out how to get on that path. I thought about like maybe just expand my technical skills more and like keep working, like, I feel very competent in front end now. Maybe we can start dealing with back end stuff, or even just keep expanding the front end skill set out. But it doesn't really excite me, and I almost feel like it's like a diminishing return situation. I don't feel like there's too much in the world of front end that I really can't do. I feel pretty capable. So it feels like and there's a million. I'm not saying I know everything. There's an asslet of stuff I don't know, and there's a lot of stuff I'm bad at, or just don't get. But I feel like I could figure out almost anything front end related, given like a long enough time. Like I just feel capable of anything there. So it feels like spending more time learning that stuff isn't helping too much. So probably like leadership-y type shit. I think that's always where I've been heading towards. I'm kind of excited for that, honestly. I think I'll be really fucking good at it. I wonder, like, managing a front-end team would be my dream job. my first job had like their front end team was about 20, 25 engineers, and managing a team of that size would be so fucking cool. I would love, oh man, that would be really, really fucking cool. And if it's front end specifically too, I would, oh man, I'd be really fucking good at it, I think. But that a job like that, you need a lot of experience on your resume. So that's one of the things holding me back, and then just the knowledge. I just don't know what the fuck I'm doing. The problem with that is that it does mean my whole move abroad strategy is probably shot. Maybe not. Managing right now in like a remote situation is pretty fucking gnarly, I would think. But yeah, I don't know. I've kind of lost the itch to live abroad again too, to some extent. Every now and then I get it, but I have. It's like that Fight Club quote: "The things you own end up owning you." I have so much shit that I kind of want to like keep it. Like I'm so moved in and nested into where I'm living right now that moving would kind of suck. If I was moved back, I'd have to like get a storage unit and put some shit in there or something. It'd just be a disaster. It can be done. It's something I play with in my mind every now and then, but you know, I don't know. I really like New Orleans too. I could see myself just living here for a pretty long time. But yeah, I'll probably move towards that management track and see how that goes. It's always what I've wanted, or I've just wanted to climb career ladder. That's got to be the next step. Too bad there's no manager boot camp. There probably is some shit like that though. There's definitely like agile scrum boot camps. Although I don't know what the fuck they talk about in there. It's all made up nonsense. But they do make money, baby. Oh man, come back to that idea. Yeah, I'm all running on caffeine again, rambling again. It sucks. That first week though was really good. I was pretty good then. But we'll get back to it. I do think I want to do another give another talk at like a tech meetup sometime soon, even if it's only online. That'd be fun. Haven't done one in a while. I have a couple ideas too. Or just do something basic like Svelte. But yeah, what else can we talk about with boot camps? I guess they come in a couple different flavors in terms of parts of the stack. You could take a front boot camp. You could take a back end. You could take a full stack one. Usually your full stack one is just going to be JavaScript based, basically. So it'll be like, you know, front JavaScript, back end Node. Some of them used to do Rails too. That's a lot though in 3 months. I think if you're trying to break in, you could do either. You could do front end or back end. I think front end is probably easier to break into for a couple reasons. Firstly, if the front end engineering isn't taught in school, this is like a big one, I think. It's not taught in school. JavaScript's not really taught in any university. So if you go into the world of front end, you're on a more even footing with computer science majors and everyone else. They'll still have a leg up to some extent, but it's much more even footing than the back end stuff. So I think that front end generally is easier to break into. I don't know why that is. I guess that's part of it, but it just seems like it in general. Front end is kind of it's not easier than back end, but it's kind of thought of that way, which is interesting. Front end is really fucking hard though. The longevity aspect is interesting. Like I would think basically front end engineers are going to exist as long as web browsers exist, and I don't see a world without web browsers. So as long as that's a thing, you know, I wouldn't worry about job security either way. I do think back end probably has more job security overall. I think like front end is more expendable generally speaking, but depends on the company, and my experience has been that front end is pretty like in demand right now. You do get like this goes both ways. You do get like in front end there's they call it like framework wars and shit, and there's sort of like a flavor of the month front end framework that'll come in, and then like a new one comes in, you have to learn that one, and a new one comes in, and you have to learn that one. You're kind of like constantly cycling through frameworks. That's been the thought for a long time, and it's fucking bullshit. It's blatantly not true. For a while that was true for sure, but like the last like React is not new anymore. It's been around for a pretty like 5+ years. Same with Vue and Angular, and those are the three that everyone uses for everything and have for a long time. So I don't feel like that whole like argument about front end technology changing all the time is that true. There's definitely new pieces and new things pop up, but they're all like this is pretty funny. When you first start out and you listen to like experienced developers talk about learning how to code, they'll always talk about learning fundamentals. Like they'll always talk about don't learn frameworks, just learn the fundamentals of like front end stuff and writing code and this and that, and you'll be fine for any framework. And I remember reading that and be like, what the fuck are y'all what the fuck is that? Like, because they never really defined what they meant by principle. So I was always like, what the fuck are y'all talking about? And then as the years have gone by, I found that this is basically true. But I think you learn the principles by learning a framework. Like by learning React and Redux and all these other little pieces of technology that go with it, when I moved over to learn like a Vue, or I've dabbled in Angular, I could lean on my knowledge of these other things to like guide me through. It's something that my manager at my first job used to talk about. He was a phenomenal engineer. Front end stuff was incredible. He would just like, and like at the time I was in awe of him. He would like look at some new library for React or a new React release or something, and he'd look at it and he could just by reading the docs like know how everything worked. And I was like blown away by that at the time. And I asked him like, how are you so good at learning? And he told me that he thinks he like, firstly, very smart dude. He didn't really admit that. Obviously, very smart person. But it's because he knew all these other things. So he could have all these reference points in his head. So anytime he sees something new, it's not new. It's like, oh, it's basically this other library that I worked with like 2 or 3 years ago. Like React Context is, you know, when it came out with when the new React Context came out with a new version, people were using it with like user-reducer and making it seem like Redux. Because I already knew Redux, you don't have to like know too much about that shit. That's a good example. But you just kind of like, as you learn more, you get more reference points in your head, you get better at learning other new stuff. And that's kind of what I think of like when people talk about principles. But that's something that comes in time. I don't think that you can set out to learn principles. Like, I don't think that you can be like on your first day learning how to code. Okay, everyone's saying I'm going to learn principles, so let's just learn that. Where do you even start? I don't really know what that means. So I would say, you know, when people say just learn principles, it comes in time, and just learn a framework. Learn React. If you're choosing between front or back end, either one's fine. Front end might be easier to get a job. Back end has a higher ceiling though for money for sure. That's something that might be worth noting. You can make a lot of money as on front end too, but I think that ladder gets really slippery the higher you get up there. Like the prime time for front end engineers, the all-star team, or like one of the best places you could work is Netflix as like a UI person. Obviously, their UI is it's incredible. It's so fucking good. Netflix has like best UI, best front end in the business, I think. And keep in mind, one of the reasons I say that is because Netflix runs on so many different devices, and it looks great on phone, on TV, on tablet, and on like desktop, and it's so fucking well done. But their front end people who are like cream of the crop start at like $350, something like that. So you can get up there, you know, as a front end engineer making salary. And then also like front end now is JavaScript, and if you know JavaScript, you know Node, so you could maybe transition to back end. But it's interesting because like the world of back end is like a whole different world. It's something that I thought when I started out, and even now, like dabbling in Node, there's so many back end like principles that I just don't know about, that make me like ill-suited to be a legit back-end developer. I could hack Node, but there's like other stuff going on that I don't know about. Performance and stuff, I really like don't know anything about. Databases, not my thing. But if you go in the front end, you can know JavaScript, and then you could like springboard off of that into Node, which is kind of the dream, honestly. Full stack Node development is like, that's the dream. Man, I remember my boot camp, we were learning jQuery. Learned jQuery for like a month, which is good to know, but like totally fucking, it was pretty obsolete when we learned it, and it's obsolete as fuck now. Oh man, at least still get something out of it. Yeah, boot camps are tough. Got 10 more minutes here. I'm running low on juice. What do I have to do today? I have a bunch of stuff to do today. Working on a feature at work that's not going too well. It's going very slowly, and then I have a browser compatibility bug that won't fucking die. They never do, though. But yeah, I think this week is going to be a little bit more flopping like this. It'll be a little scattered. And then what I want to do by next week is, before I start, I got to come up with a stream goal for this week too. I had one in mind. I can't remember it. But I think for next week's stream goal, it'll be to have the stream topic up like the night before, or like have something announced the night before, have coming in and picking a topic and rambling on it. And I have some thoughts in mind for what I want to talk about, but usually it's like they could go in any direction just because I am like freestyling it, and there's not like any chat interaction, so I am just kind of making shit up, and brain is, you know, scrambling a little bit. All right, yeah, we're gonna call it a little bit early. Oh man, I really don't want to do it because all the other ones I made it a full hour. I don't want. We'll do 5 minutes because I started 5 minutes early. We'll do like 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Man. Yeah, definitely been a hard month. It's been weird. The last 3 months of my life since Thanksgiving. I'm just gonna talk about this shit. The last 3 months of my life since Thanksgiving have been the weirdest 3 months. Like I should just I might write a short story about this shit because it has been fucking wild. The last 3 months have been. I can't keep up anymore. I think the last 2 weeks have been me like dealing with something going on, but also I think like I just had so many plates spinning. That's what it felt like. I had too many plates spinning and everything crashed. But like November, December, January were a fucking trip, man. I got some fucking good stories. Oh man, I should really I think I was thinking on Wednesday about telling one of the stories. Some they're pretty cool, and they're all linked in a weird way. I have like 5 or 6 stories. Like, it's weird because the 3, like, from April up until November, like up until the election, I did nothing. I just stayed inside and worked basically and didn't socialize. And then with like some very small exceptions. And then November, I just like I just couldn't do it anymore. Started going out again, and since that happened, shit got crazy for 2 months. It was nuts. Yeah, have some pretty good stories, and now I have nothing to show for it. You know, now I'm just sitting here empty-handed. But it was a good 3 months or so. Number of different people came in and came out of my life really quickly that were like. A bunch of people, like 3 or 4 people, came into and out of my life so quickly, and in like very strange ways. There's like other parts of the story that are just wild, but this is just me rambling. Anyway, I'm gonna start work. This has been fun, as it always is, and I'll be back on Wednesday. We'll get a stream goal up, and yeah, have a great day. Have a great day. We're gonna come back Wednesday. Will be better. I'm saying by next week will be great, but I think